Okay, just want to welcome everybody on Zoom to USA Hockey webinar series presented by Pure Hockey and BioSteel, and then also on YouTube Live. So make sure you're typing in any questions you have for the ADM managers on a Q&A box, and then if you're on YouTube, I'll be monitoring both. So make sure that you send those questions in, and we're very excited to have 4 of our ADM managers. And this is something that we're going to do probably about monthly or so. And we have 12 different ADM managers, and we want to kind of bring them in, and they live life on the road, and they're servicing a lot of different areas and associations throughout our country. So I'll let everybody kind of introduce themselves. Richie, you can go first, and then we'll go Kenny, Joe, and then Scott.
Thanks, Dave. Hey, everybody. My name is Rich Hansen. I'm the ADM Regional Manager for the state of New York in the Atlantic District. I grew up, played my youth hockey in Long Island, played my college hockey at Mercyhurst University, bounced around a little bit after that, and the pros just to kind of delay the inevitable of settling down and getting a job. And now I'm blessed to be working in the player development side at USA Hockey.
My turn, David. I'm Kenny Rausch. I'm actually the director of youth hockey for USA Hockey. I'm not an ADM manager per se, but I do oversee the great state of Alaska for ADM purposes. I actually grew up all over our country. I was born in New Jersey, lived there till I was 7, in Michigan for 2 years, Minnesota for 2 years, then to Connecticut, where I played high school hockey and went to play my college hockey at Boston University. Soon after that, I got into coaching. I coached college hockey for 14 years. And I am now in year 11 here with USA Hockey.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking in with us today. My name is Joe Bonnett. I'm the ADM Regional Manager for Rocky Mountain and parts of Pacific. I grew up outside Detroit, played youth hockey in Detroit growing up, played 1 year in the North American League for the old Redford Royals, played my collegiate hockey at Western Michigan, and then I got into coaching using the Miami of Ohio graduate assistant program, coached at Miami, coached a long time at Colorado College, and I'm in my 5th year now with USA Hockey. So thanks for joining us, and I look forward to the discussion.
Hello, everybody. I'm Scott Paluch, and I am the regional manager for both the Mid-Am and Southeast districts. I grew up in Chicago, Illinois, and played my college hockey at Bowling Green State University in the 80s, and then coached college hockey for 19 years at Bowling Green and Boston College, and I'm now back with USA Hockey and have been here for 10 years.
So just want to kind of start this off, and we get a lot of questions. I know you guys are on the road a lot, and we're seeing different coaches and associations and players, and sometimes we have, what is the ADM? I know we could say it's the American Development Model, but how did it start? I know some of you were here from the very start. If one of you guys would kick this off, and we can go from there.
Paluch, you're one of the originals.
Yeah, I didn't know. Unfortunately, yeah. I am one of the senior members. Yeah, like I said, 10 years ago. Basically, Dave, the process started long before our evolution, getting started 10 years ago, the actual official formation of the American Development Model in what you currently see in its present form. The impetus started with USA Hockey. Prior to that, being able to really do a deep look at the current state at that time of youth sports, of youth hockey, and it had an opportunity to attend some seminars and really focusing on athlete development, human performance, child behavior, and ultimately looking at what was best for young athletes and the development of young athletes. And then both Kenny Martell and Kevin McLaughlin were able to put together a series of ideas and presented those to USA Hockey, and basically the American Development was created, and it was at the time like I said, a looking inward at what was happening in our sport and ways we could do better, and evolved a formation of principles based on science and based on ultimately how we can best serve our young athletes, how we can best develop young athletes. And it's been a process, been an ongoing process for 10 years. And it's really been quite fast. I always tell people that I've learned more in terms of athlete performance in the last 10 years than I did all the years of playing and coaching collegiately, primarily with the opportunity to just focus on human performance and athlete development.
Yeah, Pooch,
Go ahead.
yeah, Pooch, I'd echo that as well. I mean, like you said, we all coached, the majority of us coached college hockey for a long period of time. The guys that started with the ADM, and it was amazing. Within a year, 2 years of working with young kids, you learn so much more about development. I'd say, David, one of the big misnomers about the ADM, and when it first started, right, our push was cross ice hockey for the younger ages and 8U and stuff. So that kind of became synonymous with the ADM at first. But the reality is it's a comprehensive plan, and the ADM's age appropriate high performance path of development for all ages. And it's, best practices for training and competition. And it's not just one age group. It's what's right for that age at that time.
That's a really good point, Kenny. And I'd add in, as I travel around to my associations and the people I work with, the discussions we're having is the ADM's a lifestyle. It's do you walk into the rink with good energy? Are you prepared to do off ice? Are you prepared to have a good practice? Are you prepared to have to really develop an athlete? And it's a lifestyle from 6 years old to beer league, and it's really what you make of it. There's a lot of recommendations out there, but the ADM is not a cookie cutter philosophy. Each association has different hurdles, and it's how you use our recommendations to the best of your ability to really service the youth hockey player of our country, so that they love the game, they're better athletes, they pursue hockey for a long time, and we're a better sport than soccer, football, and baseball.
Yeah, I mean, you guys nailed it. But again, I want to reiterate the age appropriateness, because it's delivering fun, and what fun looks like for an 8-year-old is not what it's going to look like for a 16-year-old. And it's our job for our coaches to understand that. I think you go back years ago and you'd see a lot of our practices. I think a lot of our coaches were out watching what a high level, maybe college practice looked like, or an NHL practice. And, I'm going to deliver that to my younger players. So it's really understanding what engagement looks like for younger players. Is it the same as it looks for 16-year-olds? Probably not. And then really guiding these players to develop their own passion for the game as coaches is, I think, what our job is.
So I know other associations or other national governing bodies have instituted the ADM afterwards. Do you guys know the numbers of how many are instituted?
Well, the USOPC actually has given all the NGBs, national governing bodies, a mandate to come up with their own version of the ADM. I don't want to use the word stole, but they kind of took our idea, say, hey, this is what you guys are doing. We are way ahead of the curve with making things age appropriate for kids and trying to keep more kids in the game and grow the game. And our numbers have actually grown in the last 7 to 10 years, whereas almost every other sport has declined. So the USOPC saw that and like, hey, hockey's ahead of this and doing some really good things, and has mandated that all the other NGBs come up with their own plan. And a lot have already. Lacrosse has, soccer has, football has, the big ones, but they're all following suit.
That's cool. So here's the real question. What do you, as an ADM manager, what do you do on your everyday? Like if you're starting your week, and I know we're, in the pandemic right now, but, come in the fall, what are you doing? Like, what's your typical week? What are you typically doing working with people?
I mean, for me, we're the kind of that conduit between USA Hockey and the associations. We're out there, we're in the field with our associations, and whether it's parent education, on ice demonstration, body checking clinics, we really get to know the people there and maybe cater a program to what their needs are. Every association is different. I know in my territory, the issues that are up in the Adirondacks in Northern New York are a lot different than down in Long Island. So it's really my job to build a relationship with the hockey directors and the coaches and the volunteers and cater what their needs are. And
I'd like to answer that, for, someone who was around in the early formation, our responsibilities have evolved so much over the last 10 years. I know when we first started, a lot of us, we were going around in our areas, really kind of getting as much information out to as many people as possible. And that took the form in a lot of different ways, whether it was going into rinks and being on ice with coaches and players, off ice with coaches and parents and players for that matter. But it just evolved in terms of getting as much information out as possible. And over the years, it started to take more form with a lot of associations reaching out to expand on that. How can we now take this information further? So there's always been a little bit more added to it. And I think it's been the recognition of the high performance piece of this in terms of what high performance may look like at 16 and 18 is certainly different than what it may look like at 8, 10, 12. And that's the responsibility, I think, that Kenny was talking about earlier. The age appropriate part of what we do daily is very important for associations to continue to work with that and get to the point, like Richie said, hey, what's right for your current association?
Yeah, what's really enjoying with the job is not only servicing a lot of the different clubs, from the board to the coaches to the players to the parents, but really building relationships with the hockey directors and the coaches, walking into those rinks and being really the face of USA Hockey and hearing the good and hearing the bad and trying to support each one of the associations when they ask for it. And what's interesting is how many people are reaching out and asking for help from the ADM managers and, having that conversation on behalf of USA Hockey. And these are the recommendations. How does this fit your club and how do we get your club better? Not only to keep more kids playing hockey, but ultimately to develop some pretty good players down the line. It's pretty rewarding.
And part of too what we do is best practices around the world. We have the luxury and the ability to connect with other federations. We have great working partnerships with Finland and Sweden, and we get to go visit those guys. They come and we say, okay, what are you guys doing well? What do you think we're doing well? So it's a really interesting thing that way, where we see what's really working well around the world, and we can try to deliver that back to the people in the United States. And I'm the quote unquote, I'm not an ADM manager, but I have other parts of my job as well. Like I help oversee our national championships and with our player development camp. So I got my hands in a lot of different cookie jars. So every day is a little bit different for each and every one of us in a different way. But again, like I said, the best part about it is we get to see we live research and development all the time, which is what's awesome.
So Kenny, you bring up a great point that the side jobs keep the job awesome too. You're working the national camps. Scotty Paluch did the Youth Olympic Games. Roger's done the collegiate games. Being able to do the Helinka, the Five Nations, going to Finland, going to Sweden, researching and really reinventing ourselves on a 6-month basis has been a real nice part of the job that I wasn't expecting, but it's been rather enjoyable.
So there's a lot of talk about where hockey was, where hockey is right now, and what the future will hold with hockey or the game of hockey. Some of you have played, in the 80s, some in the 90s, some in the 2000s. Talk about like the past and present state of hockey, and we'll talk about the future in a minute.
I think
Let the old guy go first.
You want to go, Kenny?
No, I was going to say, let the old guy go first.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, the guy who's seen a little bit. But I think what's great is, for people who on this call that have been able to listen into the webinars, the previous webinars the last 3 weeks, I think everyone has really touched on the state of the game. And it's pretty, when you really try to focus on, and a lot of ways it's our responsibility to make sure we have developmental principles in play for today's game. And we spend a lot of time asking the coaches and even with players and parents, say, what does today's game look like? And I think we've been fortunate the last 3 weeks to hear it from a lot of different people talk about today's game, and the common themes are there. And heard it again today. The game's not getting any slower; it's getting faster and faster. The thinking of the game now is at an all-time high. You have to be able to play the game with pace and think the game the right way. I think it's now it is final level in terms of how fast the game has gotten, and you see the players who are excelling in our game today are able to play the game with that pace. They match that with the skill, but ultimately their hockey sense, their ability to problem solve on the ice is tremendous. And those are the type of players that we'll see excel in our game. And I think it's been fun to watch. And we've had, there was outstanding hockey players 75 years ago, 50 years ago, and all the way through the last 20 years to what we have right now. And everybody's been able to adapt to the way the game was at that time. And I think what we see now, certainly in terms of pace, stick positioning, both offensively and defensively, and then the ability to think your way around the ice is so important.
I think to piggyback off of that, Pooch, you said it's not getting any slower, or it's continually getting faster. It's all not getting smaller. Yes, there are some smaller players in the National Hockey League nowadays, but on average, the players are getting bigger and bigger, which means the space is shrinking, right? So what we're seeing is the game is played in small areas all over the ice. Like the way the game's taught right now, it's, we don't want to use the term positionless. I actually got a great term from Brant Bergley, the reactionary positions, where people are in different spots all over the ice. I know, like when you played as youth, even when I played youth hockey, the right defenseman could only go to the blue line and he couldn't pass the left post. Those were the rules that we played by. Now you see defensemen leading rushes, you see defensemen making passes to each other in the offensive zone below the hash marks. So it is a different game, and players play in all different positions and situations. And the fact that it's all small area stuff, like hit pause in a game and you'll see 10 to 11 grown men in a sixth of the ice all the time. So if we're not putting our youngest kids to be in a position to make plays in small areas, they're not going to have success at the older ages, whether it's house hockey or elite level hockey. Doesn't matter. Like we're not about just making elite players. We're about making players for life. But if you can't play and have fun and have success, you're not going to want to keep playing.
Right. I was just thinking, I think it was you, Rausch, before one of our level fours, you put the 96 World Cup game on before your presentation. And those are two arguably the best teams at that time in the world. And when you watch that game, and I'm sure people now with no hockey on, there's a lot of games they're putting on from the early 2000s and playoff games, and the game has changed so much. And the rules are changing. You see some of the non-calls that were happening. So they were trying to speed up the game, try to add more scoring. So yeah, like the guy said before, I mean, guys are bigger, stronger, they're faster, and they're not slowing down.
Yeah, it's through the eyes of the kids. It's amazing. I mean, seeing what the kids are doing skill wise on the ice, on online, and all their skill drills in the driveway. It's pretty fun. I was actually on a Zoom call with some youth coaches last week, and because of the COVID and the downtime, they're watching old hockey games, as Richie was talking about. And his daughter, who plays defense, who's 14 years old, said, "Why do the defensemen in the old time game? Why do they skate backwards so much, Dad?" And the game's evolving, and it's the kids aren't sitting around waiting. And I like what Pooch said. It's not getting slower, it's not getting dumber, and it's not getting less skilled.
Speaking of the game changing, I had someone shoot me a note about changing the game and really about changing rules. Someone asked, we changed checking from out of peewees now, and it starts at how do we think it's working out, and don't we think that kids should be learning to hit in an earlier age, which it's actually true. We actually want body contact to start at 8 years old, or actually 8U, 6U, where body contact, kids playing in small areas and not running into each other. Then at 10 and 12, they should actually be doing it every day in practice. Every day there should be body contact, games, drills, stations, whatever you want to call it. So by the time they do become 13 and full body checking is legal, right? They've been doing it for potentially 5 to 6, 7, 8 years, and it should be a seamless transition. And, quite frankly, I think it's working out pretty well, because we're starting to see a wave of super skilled kids, which was really the reason why we started it. People thought, we got lucky with the safety part, but it really started as a skill development part, because going around doing clinics with young kids, you'd find kids ask one of two questions. Actually, they'd ask one question, and is there hitting here? And it was one of two reasons why, right? The little guy wanted to know if he was going to get smushed, and the big guy wanted to know if he could smush the little guy. So we took the focus out of the physical play or the violent play put the focus back on the puck and making plays, because we want the game to be physical. We just don't want it to be violent and stupid. And, you know, you look at some of the best players in the world right now, a guy like Austin Matthews, no one's going to argue that he doesn't play physically. I think last year he threw a total of less than 40 hits over the course of the year. And you can argue that that's a 6'3", 220-pound guy who's really, really physical, really skilled, plays the game the right way. That's what we're looking for.
Hey, Kenny, on that too, and I also think the biggest piece for me has been the body contact at the younger ages. I think so much of the translation with the rule change a few years back had so much to do with, you know, going from Pee-wee to from 12U to 14U with the full body contact. But the reality is the body contact, the world we lived in before that was pretty much cold turkey, no contact to full body checking. And now we added a whole layer, whether it be anywhere from 6 to 8 years sometimes of body contact leading into your full opportunity to check. And I think what's created, because just by rule and by context, the puck play, the contact play is your stick, as long as it's making a play on the puck, the contact that ensues is legal. So now the stick is in the right area, and the stick on puck and stick on stick play, in my mind, has increased dramatically. And you see now the smartest players in the game have their sticks in the right areas, and they're down. They're taking away the time and space on the puck. They have their stick in the passing lanes to break up plays. It's just been, to me, tremendous. And I think that the confidence that's been gained with players, there's when you watch a game now in that transition time, 12, 13, 14, the confidence with the puck is at an all-time high, and I think it's been fabulous.
So recently coaching 12U, 14U, you're exactly right, Pooch. And it goes back to the original premise of what Dave asked us, is that the game has changed. It's changed from maybe a blow up a guy to a puck possession game. And I think successful teams and high level coaches now expect puck possession. So what you just described, Pooch, is how do you get the puck back with that stick technique, the angling, pursuing the puck? Yes, you're going to play the body, but the main objective is to get the puck back, because those are the teams that are winning. Those are the teams that are scoring. And those are really the style of play that these young kids are starting to play, and we're starting to see. One of the tools that I've used coaching the 14 and 12U recently, youth hockey, is the off-ice body checking series. And to be honest with you, I didn't do it a lot early, but watching coaches do it, watching other programs doing it, and doing myself, to me, it had the biggest translation from off-ice, full body contact drills in your equipment with helmet and stick, with tennis shoes, and really creating a safe environment for the kids to build up that contact confidence, knowing that they're not going to get hurt, letting them experience how to absorb a check, and then watching them at the 12U age, even at the 10U age, and of course at the 14U age, go out there with a little bit of that under their belt, that experience to start their body checking careers.
So kind of going into the development side of it, and we talk about development is not linear, it's non-linear. Can you guys talk about that in your experiences with coaching college hockey and working with some of the top athletes, and what you see with the top athletes, but also with some of our youth athletes?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is kids develop differently and at different rates. The new analogy is popcorn. You put the popcorn in the bowl, right? Put the kernels in the bowl. It's the same temperature, the same. Some pop earlier than others, some pop way later than others. Right? Every kid is an experiment of one. We know that cognitively, physically, emotionally, kids can be plus or minus 3 years of what their actual age is. So to compare ourselves and our kids and other kids to each other is really doing a disservice to them all. And, we throw out the term late bloomer all the time. In reality, it's a normal bloomer, right? There are very few kids mature early, and those are the kids that usually have success at younger ages. And some of them continue to have that success, but not many do because of the normal bloomers. And, you look around college hockey and you'll see all these kids who are coming out of college hockey as free agents at 22, 23 years old. It's because at 17 years old, they might not have hit their genetic peak yet. So, we need to be patient. And that's probably the biggest and hardest thing to do, is to remain patient with every kid.
So I have a couple of development myths that I want you all to kind of just chat on. So I have about 4 right here. So my first one is that, you know, I've seen and I heard as I was growing up, you have to be on the best team to develop. What do you guys say about that?
Well, I'll certainly answer that. I don't agree with it one bit. I think the play development occurs when players are given the opportunity to do many things in a game. And I think the opportunity for players, especially in those younger years and you start getting into whether it be 14U, 15 only, 16U, players who have the opportunity to do a lot of different things in a game. Number one, to participate a lot and to be involved in a lot of battles, be involved in many different situations. What we see sometimes is the same players doing a lot of the same things. I don't think the opportunity to develop and mature is always the same on the same teams. I think players need to be in a lot of different type of developmental opportunities. So I would always, when talking to parents and coaches and players, to find an opportunity where you're going to be given the opportunity, number one, to train properly, to be in a training opportunity to really develop as many aspects of your game as possible and not to be limited, whether by participation in a certain role or by lack of knowledge as to what players should be focusing on at the developmental end. So much, it varies so much. It should be so many different developmental opportunities available to the young players.
Yeah, go ahead, Richie. You want to say something real quick?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we tend to do that a lot, and you see these super teams built early, and you're really just aggregating talent. And, you know, it's funny because you get these coaches and they'll say, well, we have no one to play. And if you aggregate the best talent and you're winning games 14, 15, nothing, it's not good for the team on the losing side. It's not good on the team that's winning. So, and you're not really allowing the cream to rise to the top, where, you know, it's better to stay home, stay local, and be the best player as long as you can be. In my mind, it goes to that development thing we just talked to earlier, that everybody's popping at a different time. So to put yourself in an area or an environment where you're not getting that opportunity, you'll just never know, I think, for those players.
Yeah, I'm actually living proof of the myth of that, because in college hockey, I did play on the best team. I won a national championship my senior year, but the reality was I got to watch a lot of good college hockey. I wasn't the best player on those teams. So it was a great experience for me, and I enjoyed it. And yes, I did develop, but would I have developed more playing somewhere where I was playing all the time? You know, who knows? You know, we have a long list of guys who played on relatively obscure teams, hockey, basketball, football, whatever it may be, that go on to become megastars, like Steph Curry. Went to Davidson, right? Because he was too small in high school, couldn't even walk on at Virginia Tech where he wanted to go, right? So you don't need to play on the best team to become a good player.
So I want to bring up a picture real quick that just want to share, and I want you to let me know who you think this is. I know you guys do, you know. So you got this athlete here, you know, he was younger, right? Glasses and all of that. Looks like he's playing multiple sports. Do you have to excel early on this?
This is one of my favorite ones ever. You gotta love the Twitter world. Like I actually got into an argument with my dad over at Christmas time because he was my coach growing up, and you know, he's a typical old school coach. I love him to death, but it's what we knew back then. And if this kid showed up at our baseball team tryouts and is as a 10-year-old, there's no doubt he's playing right field, right? Because he looks like, you know, he's a little chubby. He doesn't look that athletic. He's got the glasses and the goggles on, right? He doesn't look very athletic, and probably wasn't at 10 years old. But as we know genetics, we know what he turns out to be. 6'4" Thor. Right? And if we had judged that kid as a 10-year-old and pigeonholed him as a non-athlete and didn't play him as much as the other kids, he probably would have quit the sport.
Yeah. Hey, David, the other thing on excelling early in terms of hockey, which is interesting, is a lot of kids that do excel early are lauded. You know, the prepubescent 12U, 10U kid that can take the puck coast to coast, shoot high, shoot hard, score the 3 to 6 goals a game to win games, that those kids are good to have on your team in a sense that because you're going to win a lot of games. But what's interesting is often those kids are not the best kids, 14, 16, 18U, because we know that kids catch up with kids. And I think what the ADM provides is, with a lot of the stuff that we're recommending, specifically the small area games and the thinking is, if you put those early excellers, the big, strong kids in an environment that they get a lot of resistance, that they have to make a lot of decisions, that their skating has to be really good in tight spaces, their fall off won't be as hard as kids that are just allowed to go red line to goal line with no thinking just because they're the biggest and strongest. So I think as a coach, if you do have an early exceller, it's your job. How do I put this kid in an environment that he's not going to get passed up in 2 or 3 years, and all these other kids are fighting for their life with the puck? They have to think, they're weak and they're going to get stronger than this kid. How do you keep those kids ahead and still in the game when a lot of those early excellers in hockey, by the time 14 rolls around and the body checking is implemented, and a lot of kids catch up size wise, those kids now are vanilla and they mix right in or they fall behind. And I think the ADM gives you a lot of tools and resources to keep those kids involved and really to keep those kids ahead if it's implemented properly.
So you brought up skating, and I know we were saying how much faster the game is getting. And, you see players like Connor McDavid and these superstars, Kendall Coyne, flying around, being super fast skaters. How do you teach the skating and how do you develop the skating and make it transferable?
Well, I'll start it off, and I'm sure you guys have thoughts too. I think the thing with skating is it's such an important component of our sport. And in order to skate, have a good foundation in skating, it's going to allow you to experience the sport in a very creative and positive way. So there's no question you need to build a good skating foundation for your 8, 10, 12, 14 level athletes. But what does that look like? And what we're finding out is how do you engage players now to explore their surfaces of the ice, the surface, and their inside and their outside edges. And, skating is a technical, and some technicality and breakdowns are good, but all kids are not going to look like a perfect skater because, as we know, they have different body types. They're different. They're along different areas of their development, of their pubescent development. So how do we engage the kid to skate? And I think what we're starting to see now, a lot of associations of coaches are hiding their skating skills. They're implementing them through games. They're getting kids to jump hurdles, jump pads, fall on their outside edges, change paths, change directions as quick as they can, as slow as they can, while doing other activities. One, to keep them engaged, but two, to make sure that they're getting the proper reps so that their skating does evolve over time. And if I walk in and I see an association at the 8U level and they have kids changing directions, falling, getting up and down, starting positions from their back of their knees, chasing around dividers, playing tag, jumping in, jumping out. To me, that's a really good foundation for a 10-year-old kid now to start building his skating stride as muscles and puberty starts to take over. What do you guys think on that?
Hey, Joe, I think on that, and Dave, you mentioned Kendall. She's not a great player because she skated extremely fast in the skills. She's a great player because of that speed, utilizes it in the game the right way. And she's able to, as Joe said, change speed so well and to be able to deceptively find the open ice and then use the speed to go around players. And I think that's so important. As someone had mentioned earlier, some of the open ice at young ages when we don't put players in a proper environment in terms of shrinking the rink down, there is a lot of false ice out there, and you can just skate around, and the player who physically at that time may be the fastest skater is going to have an advantage. But over time, the game evolves where players are now forced to think of where the open ice is. How can I use something other than pure speed to be effective? You need that because as you continue to move up the chain, all the players can move extremely well. So how do I use that speed? And I think you mentioned with Kendall, she's a great player because she's able to use the speed properly in the context of a high level hockey game.
Yeah, Richie, you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I was thinking because obviously teaching skating at the younger ages, it can get kind of monotonous and boring. And how do you do that? And I thought Joe nailed it with, hiding it within games and hiding skill development, especially at the younger ages. But I was thinking about my trip over in Finland and having players take ownership in their own development. And I remember watching a practice and I saw one player, just working on his stride. And I asked the coach, why was he the only one doing that? And he said, we talked about his skating. He felt that he needed to get better, and he went out on his own and found the coach and said, hey, I want to work on this. And to be able to do that at the older ages, I think is really important, and have players recognize what their strengths, what their weaknesses are, and want to work on that. Because you see a lot of, we're going to do Russian circles or we're going to work on skating, and some kids are just not into it. And it's really tough to teach, I feel. So, and to Joe's point about everybody's a different skater. If you look at other sports, you look at baseball, how many different swings are out there? You look at a swing like Kevin Youkilis, one of the ugliest batting stances out there, and the guy can just get it done. So there's players out there that are just hockey fast. They just, they might not be fast skating from goal line to goal line, but when they're in a game and there's a loose puck, it might not be pretty, but they're going to get there. So,
Richie, that's a great point, because, the technique and the prettiness of skating, you look at the all-time greatest scorers in the National Hockey League history, a lot of them were labeled as poor skaters. Gretzky, Yager, Howe, Ron Francis, maybe said one of the worst skaters ever, and he's number 5 in points of all time. And the list goes on and on when you
Mike
look.
Bossy.
Mike Bossy, Adam Oates, Dale Howardchuk, right? Luke Robitaille couldn't skate. Yari Curry couldn't skate, but him and Gretzky had magic. And it's that ability to get to places and get to pucks quickly, not necessarily fast or be a blazer. Or, we see it in our country where there are kids who can skate 100 miles an hour, but they can't play because when you put the puck on the ice and put it on their stick, their legs are still going 100 miles an hour, but their brains and their hands can't keep up.
So kind of going on building that hockey sense and what you're doing, and, just chatting with you, in the past couple of years, how has your practices changed from when you were coaching college or wherever? I know you probably had a different way of how you practice, and how have you evolved, and how have you made it different? Because it wasn't a bad way of you doing it the way you were doing it before, but I know you're trying to find a better way.
Yeah, I look at the old practices we used to run coaching college hockey, and there's days I want to throw up in my mouth. Right? I have so much standing around and predisposed notions of where you had to go in a certain drill and flow drills to warm up the goalies, and we just didn't put enough kids in positions to be successful. Right? The way we run practices now, or design practices now, is we're looking to engage kids, challenge them, make it look like the game, so that they're always in those positions where there's constant decision making that they're going to see in a game situation. So if you're still running practices where you aren't engaging kids and making them think and putting them in game-like situations, we're doing our kids a disservice.
Knowing what
Go ahead, Joe.
real short, knowing what I know now, David, two specific things. Now I add a lot more conflict to my practices, whereas before I didn't. And the second thing is,
What's conflict?
Resistance. Nothing is done without resistance, without a real thought having to be made or decision. So I would add a lot more conflict now, and I would also look at my practice times and 50 to 60 minutes. Knowing what we know now, you can accomplish a lot of things in 60 minutes with a single team or 2 teams on the ice. And we used to go 2.5 hours in practice and pat ourselves on the back. You can get things done in 60 minutes, and I would add more conflict.
Yeah, adding on that, Joe, I agree. And we're hearing more, even in the last 3 weeks with the webinars, some of the coaches of older players talking more and more about running drills now with all game-like creativity. And I think the days of I give you a puck and tell you where to pass it, tell you where to go. I think everybody's now realizing the downfall of that when we look at the game and the amount of puck battles there are, and we all want players who can win puck battles. Those are, we talk about all the time. We want I want a competitive kid who could come out of the scrum with a puck. Well, how often are we practicing that? Is that part of is it a priority in practice? Battling for pucks, moving to a puck, finding yourself getting your body in a position to win pucks and be confident with it. And I think it's a huge skill. And then when you start extending that further and getting to the point where I was, hearing from some of the coaches of older players now, hey, what happens when you're in a scrum and you win the puck? Now there's a decision to be made. Is there time to find the open space? Is there a player coming for support? And then if I don't win the puck, where am I going? Where's my first step? Where's my stick? I think so important that the game, as you mentioned, Joe, looks like a game, and we train that way. And we're in a position to think what role am I in at the current time?
The other part I would think we change a lot of is what we do off the ice as well. I actually want to ask Richie to touch on his last trip to Finland and what he saw as far as what they do pre and post practice as well.
Before that, I just want to, obviously I agree on what everybody says, and it pretty much says, we want to train in reality and what the game looks like. And for me, obviously a lot less experience than the other three guys on here, but and I've changed. I've changed a ton. It's more, for me, it's more how I was coaching. I was really big into, I see a mistake and I would run over or skate over to a player and tell him what he did wrong, and that was it, right? And now I'm kind of changing where I'm more asking questions, and I'm trying to have that player come up with the answer. Where I'd ask them, hey, what'd you see here? And they would tell me, or what could you have done differently? And really try to have them come up with the answers on their own. I think that's so important because, a lot of players now are timid. Not a lot are timid, but sometimes players can be timid, or you come at them pretty hard and you're yelling at them where to be, and you understand, and they say yeah, and they probably don't. But I think it's just so much more powerful changing that method of coaching. And as far as what Kenny was saying for the off ice, that's just the lifestyle over there. Finland, Sweden. It's so big. You get to the rink. Practice starts at 7:00. That's off ice. They're doing some kind of training where they're some off ice where they're jumping, hopping on one foot, a lot of core strength. And it doesn't matter. There's no, it's too cold out. It's raining. We were up in the northern part of Finland and I was taking video and I took a screenshot of the temperature. It was minus 15 degrees in the dark, and these kids are out in the parking lot. It wasn't anything big weight room or weights. They were just out there, getting better, getting stronger. And that's, we were laughing, Dan Jablonic and myself were saying, wow, how many lawsuits will we have right now being out in this weather in here? So it's just a different culture, different mentality. And that's just something I think we're trying to help change and, help our coaches out so they implement some kind of program like that. Because if that's what you want to be, if you want to be a hockey player and at 13 years old moving forward, that's the stuff that we believe you have to do.
So Joe, or really everybody, but I just wanted to bring up, we know that the strength training is important. We're going to have Brian Gallivan from the NTDP on Tuesday next week about kind of some at-home strategies that you can do with your athletes. But you have the younger kids, the prepubescent kids. What can you do with them off the ice? And like, there's not a gym at the rink, or you might only have a little area.
So the clubs that I've seen that are successful in this, the first thing that's really important is, and it's an old quote that comes to mind, is if the club thinks that off ice, not I want to say conditioning, but off ice activity is important, you'll find a way to do it. The clubs that don't really believe in it and just kind of say it, they'll make an excuse why they can't. My rink doesn't allow it. Like Richie was talking about, it's too cold outside. We don't have enough money to pay somebody. And what I found is the clubs that say, you know what, we know that the sport of ice hockey is an extremely difficult sport to learn. We know it's a late specializing sport. We know that you have to be a very good athlete to be a very good hockey player to have success playing hockey. So we want to build athletes first. Now, there's a lot of clubs that I talked about. They just say, you know what, we don't have the room, time, or space or professionals to run it. But I work with the clubs that I've seen around the country, around my region. They make it a priority. And what a lot of clubs do, and I can give you real examples, is that they go out and they recruit parents that might not be able to skate, parents that really want to be involved, parents that have no hockey background, but they have maybe an athletic background, a phys ed teacher, an ambulance driver, a nurse, a dad that might have been an ex-Marine, okay, that wants to give back but has no confidence of skating. Well, those parents are going to add a lot of value to your club. And what we've encouraged clubs to do is you don't have to do off-ice training and off-ice activity every single time you come to the rink. I'm a firm believer that off-ice activity cannot ruin your night. It cannot be a 3-hour night for your club because parents don't have 3 hours, and that's unrealistic. I also think it's unrealistic asking the coach to come up with a practice plan, come up with the drills, organize the coaches, organize the tires and the dividers and the nets, and then still deliver off ice. So you recruit a team of coaches. Who's going to run the off ice? Who's going to be there 99.9% of the time, on time, with energy to match the kids to deliver 20 minutes. That's all you need, prepubescent, 20 minutes of activities, games, balance, agility, coordination. You can use our cards. You can come up with better games, strength, core strength, all that type of stuff in a corner, in a parking lot, in some grass, on a hill of snow, somewhere in your rink to do that. And what we found with the clubs that do that and deliver it consistently is not only they have stronger kids, a lot of kids actually enjoy that more than the on-ice practice sometimes, especially at the 8U level. But you're also developing, like our lacrosse coaches will come up and say, why are those kids so ready for lacrosse? Well, it's because they're athletes for 6 months playing hockey and they're strong second half of the season. And I always tell a story that one of the clubs that I work with down in Texas, they had a fat kid and he could touch his toes for the first time at Christmas and his parents are in tears. You're developing that confidence. You're developing that engagement of the kid to come to the rink, be sporty, right? Live a healthy lifestyle. And then, oh, by the way, I'm really going to enjoy hockey this year. And we see it with those types of parents can really give back, and you can utilize those parents to really strengthen your club at good value for your club.
That's just gold there, Joe. I mean, there's so much to do with those young kids, right? Simple as playing tag or whatever it is. And so many good things and resources on social media, whether it be Twitter or Instagram or whatever it is, guys like Jeremy Frisch, for young coaches that don't know what to do with those young kids, you can find that stuff all over the place and that's out there. And you don't need a lot of resources. It's a great point.
Especially in the time when they're deleting a lot of the PE classes and all that. So we got to build that into our, building the athletes. So I got a question. We're going to do a little Q&A right now, if that's good with you guys. So one of the questions we have is, what are your thoughts on staying with the same coach from 10U to high school?
Joe, you lit up there, but does the coach understand every age group along the way? And is the coach, a positive coach for young players? I think the most important thing is in most environments, I don't want to skirt the question, Dave, but every player deserves, every one of our young hockey players deserves a coach that cares and a coach that understands what that age group is developmentally. I think that's the most important thing. And if it happens to be one person who is outstanding with those kids and understands 8U, 10U, 12U, 14 all the way, then I'm for it. If it's somebody within your association, if you have somebody who is unbelievable with understanding 8U or 10U and somebody who's great at 12, 14 or 16, and they relate to that age group, they understand that age group, then that's the best for those kids. But regardless of where we're at, where you're at regionally across our country, every one of our young athletes, he or she deserve a coach that cares and a coach that understands what that age group means developmentally.
Yeah, bang on, Scotty. And to me, that's a hockey director question. Does your hockey director understand exactly what Scotty just said? Because again, if you're pigeonholed with a dad who doesn't understand the ages, the progression of the ages, it could be a tough situation. But again, if you have somebody who now you're asking a coach, can he change his philosophy from one year to the other based on the growth of the kids? And if the answer is yes, that might not be a bad situation. But that's where a hockey director's got to get involved and make the judgments. I have a great 8U coordinator here. Guy, you know what? I'm not sure if he can be a 12U coach, but he's great with the 8Us. Well, that's two different skill sets. So as Scotty said, you got to get the skill set, and freshness is a good thing. But you just really have to understand the age and how you deliver it.
And part of it is I've actually done it. I've actually taken a group of 10, but this wasn't elite players. I was coaching house level players that became B-level players at Bantam and then high school hockey players. But the biggest difference was it wasn't just me. You have to have different voices as well, right? So you can't just be one person all the time. You have to have other voices so the kids don't get sick of hearing the same voice. It may be like having the same teacher from first grade through senior year in high school. Yeah, they might be knowledgeable. Like Pooch said, they better know what each grade entails, but you have to have other people chime in as well.
I was kind of going down that path, Rashi. I mean, it's not just hearing the same voice. It's also adaptability for the kids. I mean, that's just life. You're going to have different teachers. And when you get older, you're going to have different bosses. Some you like, some you don't like. And being able to adapt and handle those challenges as a player. I think that's extremely important. Not to say if you have a coach going all the way up, that's absolutely fine. But I wanted to ask the question to Joe, because I remember asking you this question when it's your own son on the team, and I was like, you're going to coach, and you were saying, I don't know. I think it's time for him to experience somebody else. So it plays into that. So you clearly thought it was important for him to have a different look, a different voice, and experience that.
I did, Richie, and more specifically because of his age. And, I coached him, I think, Pee Wee Bantam. And to me, as he entered the 18, 16U level, it was time for him to make the game for himself. And I coached him for 4 years. He's heard my voice for 4 years. But to me, he had to have the initiative. He had to have his own drive to go and explore the game, I think, by himself. And I also have other kids I want to drop down to and spend time with. But for me, as Noah entered 16, the game was on his shoulders, and he had to go take it from there. And that was the thought behind that.
So we got a question from Doug. What common elements do you see in the clubs with the best development culture, and how do you promote that?
Could you reread that again?
What common elements do you see in the clubs with the best development culture?
For me, I think the club is not, if you have 12 teams, it's not 12 teams on a different page, coaches doing their own thing. They're all working from the same blueprint. It's not to say that we have 12 coaches that are exactly the same, but they have the same beliefs. They have the same goals. They understand the age that they're coaching. But again, you have a strong hockey director or a strong leader, whether it's a president, and they're kind of saying, hey, this is how we're going to run this program, and you guys kind of go off and do your thing. We're not really pigeonholing them to coach in a certain way, but it's really everybody's kind of on the same page.
Richie, and you talk about that cohesiveness. I think, the club culture, and Joe, I want you to talk on that as far as club culture, because I think you've nailed this presentation a number of times, but I want to just add that the top clubs that I've seen around the country, on top of the club culture, they have a total commitment to the development of the individual athlete, person, every player. As I mentioned before, that they deserve that. And when the coaches care about the individual more than the results of a team, when they care about making players better on and off the ice, that's generally when you see the best results, and ultimately leads to the most successful teams.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. And to me, real simple. It's a real strong board, a real strong leadership with a real clear vision. And what we're starting to see around the country now is what we've noticed in Finland and Sweden is that, and it's a new profession. There's not a lot of professionals out there, but is a strong hockey director that can then deliver the vision of the board. Can he communicate with the parents? Can he communicate with the coaches? Can he coach the coaches? Does he have a real strong feel on what player development is? And I'm not saying competition and winning and losing is not important, because it's very important. I understand that. But the clubs that really do a good job at development put player development ahead of winning. And then, like Scotty said, winning will follow. But the ones that are kind of just trying to piecemeal a team so they can win here and there for whatever reason, those are the programs that kind of stutter. But the programs that have a strong vision, have a strong delivery method, and surround themselves with like-minded coaches. That's the other thing. Sometimes you got to get rid of people that aren't on board. Sometimes you have to attract people that are thinking like you. And if you do that and have a strong vision with people that are like-minded, those are the clubs that are really taking some great steps in our country.
So I have a question from Andrew on YouTube, and he was wondering, and you all travel around to different associations, and it's not just model clubs you're traveling to. How do you get in touch with you or our other ADM managers for their associate for you to come to their association?
ADMkids.com. We have all of our map of the country of who covers what, and our contact info is on there.
So that's a good start, Andrew. I know you're listening, but then my last question for every single one of you, and I asked this with Coach Verity yesterday. Looking back from when you started coaching, what would you tell your younger self?
I wish it said when you played.
Go ahead, Richie.
Yeah, I was just like, when I read that, I go, I wish it
Start with
said
getting a haircut.
I think just understanding the age and really having patience, and you can't treat everybody the same. It's really building relationships with these players and understanding what each player needs. Some players you can be a little harder on because that's what they need, and other players, if you act that way, they'll curl up into a ball and not want to be a part of it anymore. So it's really understanding, having patience for the game, and then this whole idea of training in reality for me is been, because I would, my practices were very, I wanted my practices to look good. I mean, a bad pass, I was the coach jumping out there, blocking the pass, giving it back to him. But, I'm not going to be there in the real game. So really training in reality, making my practices ugly, and teaching in those games and in those, in that kind of style.
Richie, I'm following it up. I would, my younger self is a long time ago compared to Richie there, but my biggest thing is if you're follow the passion, if coaching is what you want to do, make sure you're getting into this profession for the right reason, and that you really understand what is right for young athletes and what is right for kids at every age. And I think it's so important to understand it. And we see people who come out of a certain age of coaching, myself, and I tell this all the time. When I the 19 years of college coaching and then jumping into the youth hockey world, I had no real concept of how to be successful with 10U, 12U kids. And until you realize the needs that those players have, it's really kind of fruitless at times. So if you're getting into this profession, really take the time to learn what is right for each age group that you're going to coach.
Yeah, for me, it would be probably don't sweat the small stuff. What I mean by that is when I was first coaching, like Paluch was talking about, when I first got into college coaching, you wanted to win so bad that every thing affected you. You yelled at the ref because of an offside call. You yelled at your player because he missed a pass. In the grand scheme of things, I think we've all learned that we've become much better hockey coaches when we don't focus on the outcome and all you do is focus on development. And I wish I knew that as a young coach starting a coaching career. Instead, I was focused on the outcome, and I would get so wrapped up in the process that I would go haywire, right? And now it's the complete opposite. If I'm in a game and my team's losing, I don't lose any sleep over it anymore. And then the funny thing is the teams that we've all coached have been fairly successful because we let the kids play, we let them figure it out, we let them solve their problems, and we make it about them, not about us.
Yeah. Real quickly, I would just say I need to increase my patience. I was a little impatient as a young coach. To understand that really your performance falls onto your training, not you as the super coach with the chalkboard or the grease board. It's about the environment and the culture that you set up, which really creates winning and successful programs. And And when I was a younger coach, I thought it was about the drill, and it's really about how you treat people, the culture, and how exciting you make it for the kids walking into the rink. And my third thing is knowing this, and I think this is really important. I can be a high performance coach in any rink with any kid in any state that I want to be in. Being a high performance coach doesn't mean, when I thought it was a young kid, of who I'm coaching. It's how can I be a high performance coach every day walking into the rink? And if it's coaching college kids or pro guys, or if it's coaching my 11-year-old daughter, how am I a high performance coach? And knowing what I know now gives me a chance. I would say those three things. And just in signing off, I just wish everybody a safe COVID time, that they're using this time, wisely for themselves, that everybody's kind of recharging. Because I know when this thing's over, we're going to hit the ground running and people are going to be dying to get back to the rinks. And I think that's going to be one of the most exciting times in the history of hockey when we all get back into the rink.
Well said, Joe.
Yeah, very well said. And thank you guys for joining and being part of it. Tomorrow we have Scott Clemenson, New Jersey Devils development coach, unreal guy as well. And then on Friday we have Jeff Blashill, head coach of the Detroit Red Wings. So thank you everybody for joining the USA Hockey webinar series presented by Pure Hockey and BioSteel. Have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow at 3:30. Thanks.
Thanks, Cruiser.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Cruz.